Welcome everybody to another WeatherXM partner highlight video. Today, I'm super excited to have Lumberg and Tangle from TrueMarkets. Hello guys, how are you doing?
Doing great, doing great.
Good, good. Thanks for having us.
Yes, excited for you guys to be here. Would you mind giving a brief introduction on your guys' backgrounds, and then we can get into TrueMarkets?
Sir, Tangle, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I've been a long-standing kind of crypto enthusiast. Kind of found Bitcoin in 13 and have found my way into working in crypto full time a few years ago. Yeah, primarily helping around community marketing, BD, that sort of stuff, and just an overall. I've worked with a number of kind of DeFi protocols in the past, and a variety of other projects, and obviously I'm. As I've kind of come from the heart of, I guess, more of the fundamentals around decentralization and whatnot, it was made sense to be a part of a decentralized permission or decentralized prediction market. So yeah.
Excellent,
Great.
perfect. And how about you, Lumberg? Yeah.
So I've been an active builder and investor in the blockchain space since 2017, from coming from the Web2 world before that, doing some cloud compute, centralized before we went to the decentralized world where some cloud software QA things. Joined the DAO movement in 2020, contributed to and continue to contribute to multiple DeFi projects, serve as councils, members on different DAOs like Pleaser DAO, which do a lot of NFT stuff. I also serve as multi-sig signers on a few different protocols. I am a delegate on Arbitrum. I am a NFT enthusiast and a proud ape. So if you go to my X profile, you'll see my ape.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like we have some crypto OGs here. So I'm excited to talk to you guys today about TrueMarkets. So could you guys give me and the WeatherXM community a quick overview of what TrueMarkets is and what you guys are building?
Sure. TrueMarkets is a decentralized prediction market. I think it's probably worth going into what is a prediction market first, and then talk about how we're different. I actually think that prediction markets as a sector is super interesting. It definitely hat tip to the leader in the space here in Polymarket. They've done a good job of making this thing mainstream. We've seen it at the last U.S. election, where the platform correctly called the Trump win way ahead of the news agencies. So I think they had Trump winning at 95%, while all the top talking heads on the news were like, "Oh, we're not so sure. Look at this, we're not sure." But it really went to show how prediction markets as a information aggregation tool is superior to that of traditional media. So I know there's some political nature around trustworthiness of media. However, I think it's across the board. There's been less trust across media and government, generally speaking, in the last few years, which I think is an interesting place for prediction markets to come up. I think as part of doing the history and the research on prediction market, what was the most interesting thing to me was learning that prediction markets actually is not a new thing. So some people say, "Oh my God, you're doing all this new blockchain stuff." It's not new. The Iowa electronic markets has had a prediction market for U.S. presidential election outcomes since the late 1800s, and if I remember correctly, it predicted the outcome of the winning presidential candidate in the United States between some period like 1860 to 1940 or so, correctly for all of them, from, if you're winning a month before the polls, before the actual vote, except for 1916 for Grant, which is pretty impressive. But it got stopped based on gambling, anti-gambling, racketeering rules, etc., which is really interesting. And I think what's cool of why we're building this thing too is just blockchain. Blockchain does definitely make this whole old thing new again and useful. So I guess prediction market, it definitely, we could talk more about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the overview and the history of prediction markets. It's fascinating in the sense of how long it's been used in the traditional sense. And so, I guess I would love if maybe you guys could even, do you guys have any markets you could share on your platform, now, and go over a quick overview for our audience on how do you use a prediction market? How do you use TrueMarkets?
Sure. Yeah, actually, so let me bring this thing up here. Let me do a screen share if you don't mind.
Yeah, so if we look here, we've got kind of our main page where you've got all of these different markets in which you can take a look at, see the different kind of categories and whatnot. One of our, you can see all these categories up top there. And if we look at one of these kind of main markets here to start with, if we go look at like the China lifts or amends rare earth export restrictions, we click into that one, then we can see kind of, and we can go yes, no, however we feel for a resolution on, or what we would choose for this, and then yeah, you can just put in your the amount that you wish to bet. Oh, I think you hit this. There we go.
So essentially, you can speculate on anything, and this particular
Yes.
market was created by someone on the TrueMarkets platform to determine whether China is going to lift or amend the rare earth restrictions before
Yes.
September. Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, different markets get proposed, and they get brought into the platform, and then liquidity gets provided for these, and then yeah, people just start betting on them and deciding what these outcomes will be. So it's always kind of like, because it's like a market, and that's different than perhaps, let's just say, you're generally used to you bet on something and then it's like, well, you have to wait till the outcome. These are markets, so they're fluid, so you can actually buy and sell into them. So you could constantly be choosing, hey, I want to buy. Yes, I think this is accurate, and you could sell some of your yes token, your some of your yes position, and even go into the no position as well if you decided to totally change your opinion. So it's a fluctuating market, and that's what's the beauty of it. So you're not just sold in on the buying that outcome directly and having to hold on to it until the end.
Interesting.
But yeah,
Yeah, I think it's. Oh, sorry. I was just going to add that based on this thing, and maybe it's worth going back into the mechanics of how this works, right? So if you bet on a yes token, if yes comes true, then you get whatever the amount is. So in this particular case, one yes is you can be selling it at a market for 53 cents roughly, but that if whatever the market happens to be and this thing is resolved to yes, then your one yes token would be redeemable for one USDC, $1 essentially.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it's like a decimal odds. So you buy it. If you thought this was going to happen, you buy it for 53 cents. And if you're right, it turns into each token is $1. Is that
correct.
right?
That's
Okay.
correct. Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so this is interesting. But so how does this relate to the weather?
Yeah, I think with when it comes to the weather side of it, and in particular here with WeatherXM, we can have these kind of markets available for different, for any type of outcome. And so if we look here, actually on the site here, you can find there's a whole weather section, and now we literally have markets here where you can bet on the temperature of a specific day. So if we click in here for the highest temperature, we'll let the highest temperature in London exceed 82 degrees Fahrenheit on June 13th. Now people can say, yes, this is going to happen. No, this isn't going to happen. And we've got this whole market that's literally around weather. And again, this is really cool to be using something like WeatherXM, because like you guys are a decentralized weather market. All right. So then we've got the ability to have decentralized prediction market, and that's what seems really cool to me. So the fact that you guys have like decentralized weather stations, you have multiple units instead of just one that's giving you the source of data. We also have a prediction market that is decentralized and allows anybody to come and participate in this. So yeah, here's where yeah,
Very cool. And so essentially what you're looking at is a fully transparent on-chain way to speculate on what the temperature is going to be in a certain area, determined by WeatherXM stations that are all in London. Is
you
that
got it.
okay? Perfect. And so you
Yeah.
just click the resolution button. And
Yeah,
so
and so then inside of our resolution here, it'll give you the kind of the rules and how these markets will resolve and how that works. And what's been super cool with this is that we've actually got the sources coming directly from you guys. So if we go look at that link there for you guys to WeatherXM, that takes us to here where it's to your website where it's showing all of these, showing the weather outcomes. So we're literally being able to utilize and leverage you guys for the resolution. look at that. It's even got all the stations and whatnot too. So
Yeah, this is super cool. I know Stratos has been working on this from our one of our founders. So essentially, I think what you're looking at here on the graph is all the lines of the temperature for every single station in the city boundary of London, and then it shows you what it thinks is going to be the current highest temperature related to weather station there. So 17 degrees Celsius, you see that. And then if you scroll down a little bit, I think you see all the stations we're using. I believe the blue ones are the high quality stations, and the gray ones are ones that have what we consider low quality data, which is if you look at traditional markets, this is actually a huge upgrade from what the Chicago Mercantile Exchange would use, which is a single station at the airport in London, so Heathrow. Versus what we're
right.
doing is we're taking an aggregate of all the stations around London to get an actual, probably a better understanding of what the median will actually be. So what the Chicago Mercantile Exchange is actually doing in their contracts is they're trying to see how many people are running their air conditioning, considering it's the summertime right now, or in the winter they're trying to find out how many people are running their heater. And so using all these stations around the city is a much better indicator of that. So I think this is super cool. And so you're saying this is the actual source that you're using to resolve this market.
Correct.
So what happens, God forbid, if something goes wrong here?
Yeah, so we've kind of got like an interesting mechanism in order to ensure that the truth is accurate with all this. So in this model here, we have your temperature that showcases it's listed. This is how it's been, and so then we can have people come in and propose that say, hey, yes, this is accurate. That yes, the weather was above 82, or no, it was not. And so then people can come in and propose the resolution. We've also got AI to kind of help us as well. So then AI will kind of give an option as well for some of the markets as far as how it's proposing for us. So it kind of gives you that opportunity to do that. And then if let's say somebody came in and decided, hey, you know what, actually the weather wasn't actually above 82, but I'm going to propose that it was and see if I can slip it by. There's a whole process in place where people can dispute that. And so originally that would get disputed and then kind of pushed onto a council to look over that. Then if that gets disputed again, we've got all the token holders can vote to say that yes, whether this is right or not. And then our final backstop, which is actually which is really, really cool here and kind of different than everywhere else, is the fact that we've got this attester council. So basically we've got a variety of like nearly 100 different attesters of actual individuals throughout kind of credible builders from within the crypto and ecosystem, just like high profile personalities here as well. So there's a lot of people putting their actual reputation on the line here. And so these acts basically like a jury system is the way to think about this. So
Yeah,
this
I think I
yeah.
recognize a couple of the icons on there
Yeah,
from
yeah, no, we've
Twitter.
got some great people here. So yeah, very fortunate with that. And so we've just got a system in order to in order to have this as the final backstop, because we've seen how each of these along the way these things can become manipulated or can be exploited or however. But this way here, when we've got this final kind of backstop here, there's basically we will have 11 testers will be randomly selected each round, and they each opt into the round, and there's mechanisms to keep them incentivized to do so. And then that way we like randomly you're selecting this. So you couldn't just say, hey, I'm going to pick 11 people and think that, okay, if I pick these 11, these ones are going to be selected. It's randomly selected. So you couldn't even like to try and collude with a bunch of these, or if 11 people here tried to collude, it would be like basically impossible for them to, for this to happen. So it provides, and again, we've got people with reputation on the line where sometimes like it doesn't make sense to collude against those types of markets. So we've got a whole bunch of different systems in place, and we think that this is the way to do it, and it actually will provide a better result should there be disputes. Obviously, we want to.
So
I think
yeah,
it's worth
go ahead, Lumberg.
mentioning here that our I would say for a big piece of improvement that I'm no doubt that Polymarket has already been thinking about is how to fix this part on their system. And I say fix because maybe not such a controversial opinion. Their resolution system is broken. Like they just have one step where they use the UMA protocol and the UMA token holders, which is UMA is known as an Oracle protocol. So they're the ones that can, technically, objectively, in a decentralized manner, have their token holders vote on a resolution in the event of a dispute. But where we believe the problem lies there is that it's a single step resolution process. So it's very much more similar to like a Chinese magistrate court where you get one shot and whatever the magistrate says, that's it. Whereas our system has multi-tiers, as Tangle mentioned, where you end up with the ability for say, hey, look, I don't like this resolution. So you can go challenge a market. So if I go look at this thing here, I don't know if we have anything that's actually resolving right now, but if we get if we get into kind of like politics, let's say, and somebody tries to resolve, this market, for example. So right now, if I go to resolution and I say, okay, there's a expected resolve date later, but if I go to a different one where I try to resolve it, users can actually challenge the market outcome. And then as going through the various steps that Tangle talked about, which I think with the final boss being that large attester network that we talked about earlier, which actually allows us to credibly say, look, you can trust that the system is trustworthy. And if, any of these people behaved in a way that's not consistent with how the market should be resolved or commonly believed to be resolved, then these people would have to basically face the discussion on, well, why did they do it that way, et cetera. Whereas the UMA protocol is often criticized.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, and so this is essentially one of your major differentiations from like a poly market, right? It's the
Yes.
way that this is so decentralized and fully on chain. This is super cool. But yeah, so beyond weather, and to me, probably one of the hardest things is like curating things people are interested in. And so, how do you guys come to determine what markets you guys are making on here? So, like, have you noticed any of the most, or I guess to you guys, and this is to both of you guys, what are some of the most interesting markets you've seen on the site so far, and what are you excited to see?
I
Maybe
think I
Tangle,
think
we could, or Lumberg. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying there's, I think this is very interesting because at a very, very high level, right? Previously, I've spoken to how traditional media in certain areas may not be the most accurate in aggregating information. So we think that prediction markets as a whole act as a fantastic tool to aggregate information. So that's why our tagline, News Powered by Markets, is actually exactly speaking to that, because in a very strange way that this thing works, when you really think about it, we're able to surface rather private information publicly. That is, in some ways, people are, well, isn't that kind of like insider trading? Like, no, you're actually surfacing knowledge. So if you are on the ground in London and you say, hey, you know what, you're a weather specialist and these stations are at these places and you think that, they're right or wrong, you can go ahead and basically arb it, but it's arbing it to the benefit of everybody else receiving this information. So it's decentralizing the ability to make the stuff correct. So that's kind of one interesting bit about this sort of info science, as I guess Vitalik Buterin calls it, and who, by the way, is a backer of TrueMarkets. We're very proud of that. I think, but another thing that sort of wasn't so obvious when we first started working on this is the idea of risk markets, right? So that could be something like, where we talked to some protocols about this. We don't want this to come across as some kind of weird curse on them or anything, because it's not the intent. But you could say, for example, we'll do this to ourselves. Would True Markets be hacked for more than $10 million before the end of the year? Something like that. And you go, well, why would you want that? It's like, well, I have deposits on there and I want to buy this insurance. But where can I go to find insurance on this very exact event? Well, basically, you would have this market, this risk market, and you would bet, yes, it does happen. Not that you're hoping for it to happen, not that you want to win the money, but you're hedging against the event that does happen. And then if we put that in the context of a weather thing, I think, right now so I'm in Taipei right now. There is a storm. There's a typhoon coming up here just southwest of us. And so that will probably make, it may make landfall here or somewhere else, where some person, depending on the weather for the crops and their well-being, might want to bet on that in case that event does happen. So they can bet on yes, not that they want yes to happen, but they can bet on yes in case it happens and it pays out. That's interesting. We also have, I just got finished talking to an interesting EDM producer, event producer, not a music producer, EDM producer of events. If you want to buy the ticket and then say, if it rains that day, oh, I don't want it to rain. But if it rains that day, I could buy insurance against it. And then they're also talking about other applications, like perhaps using it as a mechanism for fans to have early fan engagement. Like, who's going to, headline EDC Vegas this year? Well, gee, I don't know. Here are the people. And so these markets can actually, you can bet. The funny thing here is that prediction markets, you can create a market as long as people are willing to bet on it. So there's some obscure things, like for a while, people wanted to bet on these Thai boxing matches. There's also folks betting on some weird Eastern European table tennis matches that only like 5 people are watching in the gym. The examples I can go on forever, but I think there's so much going on and the space is super interesting. So I don't know, Tangle, if you have other things you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think I'll just kind of piggyback off of the whole weather side of things to start here. Even in Canada here, like there's always like wildfires that are happening regularly as well. And maybe there's even ways where people could think about it from that sense too, where it's like, hey, how do I protect myself against, like, if there's rainfall and whatnot? If there's a lack of rainfall, this could be an issue. And then I know, like with a lot of agriculture too, there's probably a ton of different things to do around rainfall as well. So that one kind of interests me, or it kind of got me thinking about it a bit more, just from some of the people I knew and kind of like how they would, when I was explaining this to them, their eyeballs kind of like lit up a little bit more. So that was pretty interesting. And then even on the weather side of it, is like someone who values snowboarding quite a bit, and these passes to places like Whistler or any other ski resorts, they do come at a cost. And we were thinking, like, well, if we have a bad snow year, like if the snowfall is this, if we don't get enough snow, maybe I could like hedge against my like whole lift pass too, right? And be able to say, oh, you know what? Well, I broke even this year because because it wasn't a very good snow year. But hey, happy to lose money and then pay more if we're going to have like a record year, for example. So those kind of things have thought of, I've been thinking about as well when it relates to weather markets, or the weather, and then having prediction markets on top of it as well. So I think there's a lot of really cool stuff that can happen. And one thing that we're looking to do too, moving forward here, as one of these other kind of pieces that is to have like these escrow markets is something else we're thinking about. So you may have seen people have, 2 different opinions. Maybe they're online talking about something, saying, I think this is going to happen. No, you're wrong. I'll bet you this or that.
Yeah,
and so people
like,
are looking for a place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people are just looking, say, okay, well, now we need to figure out how to build a, this outcome. How do we bet each other this, and do it online, and to be able to do it in a decentralized way instead of calling up your local celebrity to try and escrow the funds for you. So that's something that we're thinking about as well. And I think that could be pretty neat and pretty interesting. So yeah, maybe we'll have some people disputing what the weather is going to be coming forward.
That's excellent. I mean, I'm super excited about TrueMarkets, and I'm super excited about our partnership and to see where it goes. And I just want to, I guess ask, do you guys have any final thoughts? I know I've seen a lot of things in the news about prediction markets. One of the many reasons, we wanted to work with you guys, and I think vice versa, is that we see a future in not only using this for speculative bets, but, also like as a news source. So what is the forecast going to be? TrueMarkets thinks it's going to be, 83 degrees. NWS, National Weather Service in the US, thinks it's going to be 82. Who's right, who's wrong? And now I think TrueMarkets is now a new forecast. Is that a way to think about it? A new forecast on what the temperature or what's going to happen from a weather perspective?
I actually think that this is a new form of media altogether. If you notice, I guess it's probably worth pointing this out. If we notice back to the, let me just do that. I'll go back to the screen share again. If you notice back on the screen here, that this thing looks a lot like what you would see at like any news site, CNN, anywhere else. You have this top bar, right, of all the events that happen. I see a future where, like, why would I go to look at news that may or may not actually capture? Let's just stick with presidential election information without getting political on what news you want to ingest or what have you. The source of accuracy when you look at a poll for a presidential election is something that you want to have as accurate as possible, regardless of your political leanings. And that the fastest way to get information surface is when people put their money where their mouth is. So when this happens, you're going to be able to get news quicker. When you want to know not just the weather, but political outcomes, potentially latest news information, people with a financial incentive to go ahead and put the money into the market and effectively arb it into a way that benefits everybody else, that I think is going to be way more accurate in the future as it goes. Actually, there are a lot of things I'm really excited about TrueMarkets where we're headed right now as well. We're doing a lot of integration of AI at the moment. And that is something that I know a lot of people talk about AI and, that there's a lot of things happening. The world's changing because of AI. We've certainly built this thing with AI in mind, with AI integration, both on the front end and the back end. Is AI as the engine and human as the steering wheel, as I think Vitalik also talked about that. What that means is for us to have in our vision to have permissionless market creation. So it democratizes information flow. Wherever it is, whatever subject matter it is, eventually we believe people should be able to go ahead and tap into market creation for these decentralized markets. They should be able to, through AI, can help them create that. AI can help resolve some of these markets. That is when the time comes and it's correct. We're actually testing this in live right now. I can't show you an example right now. I don't think there's any markets resolving at the moment, but if there are markets resolving at the moment, you can see, there's no resolution pending. You could see like whether AI agrees with it or not. And I think that is a very interesting kind of direction where things can go. I was like looking around to see if there's anything that we could see. But besides the AI market creation and an AI market resolution, which by the way is still subject to the resolution dispute path, so that if AI gets it wrong, we're going to be able to go fix it. Is also the liquidity agent. So we do see that earlier before we started recording, Alex, we talked about kind of how we could potentially balance out some liquidity pools. And so we are testing out right now. AI is not ready. That's the kind of punchline on that piece. But eventually, we see a future where you basically give money to an AI bot that can help you market make correctly, perhaps based on the latest information via API on WeatherXM. Then that way, it could automatically rebalance the liquidity correctly, so that if there's seemingly bets that seem like away from the truth, which could be people buying insurance, then the bot can kind of arb it back properly and then offer a better rate for people buying insurance. And then I think the last bit to that outside of AI that we're really excited about is the yield bearing collateral. So we're actually very close to implementing something that allows people to bet on very long duration markets. So if you're saying, will climate change occur like 5 years from now? Well, you don't want to put like some stack of money there and miss out on 5 years of interest, right? So this new yield bearing token, yield bearing collateral type of integration would allow you to say, will the climate change 10 years from now, 20 years from now? And it doesn't mean that you have to basically bet on something and say, okay, well, great, I'll see you in 20 years and come back and click on these buttons. No. You can go ahead and bet on that 20 years from now market, 5 years from now market, 2 years from now market, and then based on some new information on climate science, and then make that change to say, okay, well, now that I've bet on this certain price and it's gone up, I'll just go ahead and sell it here. And then I'll still capture the yield I gained from that price change, as well as the yield I've gotten from it being in the market on chain, earning interest.
Excellent. Yeah, no, that's super exciting in terms of not only getting AI involved. And I almost wonder if you bring in different AIs, like if you bring in Venice AI versus ChatGPT, what if they have differing opinions? I think that would be interesting. And then the yield bearing tokens, that seems like a must on those like long-term, long-dated bets. So that makes total sense. Yeah. Any final things that you're excited about, Tangle?
Yeah, I think just a lot of the things that Lumberg has covered already. Definitely the yield token, yield bearing token for markets. I think that's extremely interesting and attractive. We're going to have people that are just literally going to have capital that they're like, hey, you know what? This seems like a very reasonable thing at trading at 3%. That no, it's not going to happen. So you're already locked in to get if you're betting on something at 3%, and you're locked in at whatever the yield is for that for that stable coin, you're getting that yield right there. Plus, it's a pretty safe 3%. And should something change, you have that ability to get out at any point in time. So to me, that one's really interesting because I think that helps attract liquidity and make the market a little thicker and make it more interesting for people. And then, I'm actually kind of curious to see how much further this can go here with weather and whatnot, and kind of extra new elements that get added into it. That does seem pretty cool. And again, I think just like having this as a decentralized, with all these decentralized weather stations and what you guys are offering, pairs very, very well with like a decentralized permissionless market like there, or prediction market like we're doing as well here. So I think lots of cool synergies there. And as much as we got into the risk markets around, crypto and stuff like that, those things, they are a bit spooky, but they do have their place. Yeah, those are kind of the main things I'm excited about. And we'll see what can happen with AI. I hope that we can get into a place where we can, just rely purely on AI. I think we're getting closer, and I would love to be able to let that work for us. So I'm very hopeful that we'll get to that too.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited about the weather markets on your guys' platform. So I'm excited to see our partnership grow. And, I really appreciate you guys coming on. Lumberg, where can our audience follow you, and where can they stay up to date with you as well, Tangle?
Yeah, I guess the main thing here is if you're looking for True Markets, you can go to TrueMarkets.org, and that is where everything is listed there. I think we've got all our socials and whatnot, so we are TrueMarkets.org on X, so you can follow along there. Is probably the best place for us. And then we do have a Discord. That's where most of the community chats and does that. So those are a great place to find further information, or if you want to get involved. And then of course I'm 0x Tangle on X, so you can find me there. And happy to chat further.
Excellent. And then I think you're Lumberg.eth, right, Lumberg, on X?
Yep. Proud ETH Maxi. Can't deny it.
Excellent. Well, hey, I appreciate the time, guys. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks.